The Ensemble podcast is intended for professional financial advisors. All discussion is limited to publicly available information and should not be interpreted as legal, professional, or financial advice. Ensemble does not hold an AFS license nor provide any financial services. Before making investment decisions, you should obtain financial advice from a qualified financial advisor.
Hey guys, it's Ben Nash here. I'm one of the co-founders at Ensemble and founder of financial advice company Pivot Wealth, which is my business baby I started from scratch a little bit over 7 years ago. In that time, I've leveraged some of the learnings of the Ensemble community to scale the business to become one of the better known financial advice companies for high income accumulators in Australia. And through this podcast, you can join me each Tuesday as I have the absolute privilege of interviewing some amazing people where I'm going to selfishly be able to learn and continue my journey to improve every area of my advice business. Hopefully you can learn a few things on that journey as well. Jump over to ensemble.com, and if you haven't already signed up, to learn and share from others, or simply download the app.
This podcast is proudly brought to you by 360 Health, MetLife's award-winning end-to-end health program designed to help your clients defend against serious health conditions so they can live healthier for longer. MetLife's 360 Health provides quick, easy and discreet access to over 50,000 leading local and global specialists, including general practitioners, doctors, psychologists, specialists and mental health clinicians. Talk to a MetLife sales manager today to find out more about how you and your clients can access expert medical support and guidance from the comfort of your own home.
Hey guys, Ben from the Ensemble team, and today I'm here with Ryan King. Ryan is the founder and advisor, and his official LinkedIn title is Westie Hustler at Three Kings Wealth Management. Ryan, good to have you, mate.
Thanks, mate. Good to chat with you again, Ben.
Mate, you've got a super interesting business in the niche that you play in, and I'm keen to get right into that. But I suppose to start, could you just unpack how you've ended up where you are today?
Yeah, for sure. I think I won't go way back. There's a couple of podcasts I'm on where I go way back, so maybe a bit of a plug. People can go and find those somewhere. Just search my name, you'll find them. But I think just as a quick background, I grew up in the West, or in between the West and the Central Coast. I grew up in Mount Jordan in Umina as a kid, and just being around those parts, money's not really a priority other than spending it on some TNs or some ASICs. So unless you steal them, I grew up, I was doing whatever I was doing, and I ended up joining the military to try and get out of, make sure I was going to be all right. Joined the military, loved it, got injured in 2014, left 2015, and we had like a suicide sort of epidemic, I guess you call it. And I just did some research on my discharge on how I can help while I was recovering. And, long story short, there was a big study, a link that I did 52 hours of interviews and linked. Basically, a large majority of people said that their mental health was caused significantly by financial stress, which as we progress forward, we find that out across just Gen Pop answer. But I thought, wow, I can really help my brothers and sisters here from the military, and weirdly started selling insurance because that was the entry level for me then, the cold calling and door knocking, which I was pretty good at. I got number one in Australia straight away, but very quickly realised that I don't like selling. This isn't. The age of selling insurances for the purpose of selling insurances was dead and gone. And so I started studying, I was just naturally doing like cash flow and stuff with like budgets and that kind of stuff with clients for the insurance sales. And I was just this holistic approach naturally. And I stumbled across a friend, sort of like a colleague that was a financial planner, and figured out, wow, that's kind of what I've started doing sort of. I'd like to explore this more. And I started studying and started studying that particularly, not just the insurance stuff. And applied for a few jobs back in Sydney to come home when I was from Townsville and Brisbane, and got back here at a small firm in Baulkham Mills and started learning all about investments and that kind of stuff. Sort of grew my boots there pretty quickly, and that's where I ended up at Announcer with your mate Roxy, and
everyone's
mate Roxy. Did a couple of probably 6 months or something there during the InFocus merge. That was after I got like the InFocus Rising Star Award, and I was up and comer there, learning all that stuff. But pretty quickly realised that, man, this suit and tie stuff isn't me. I felt fake. I didn't enjoy the faking it till you make it feeling I had. I was telling people what to do with their money when I had nowhere near that kind of money. I'd never seen that kind of money, and I understand the theories are all applied regardless, but I just felt massive imposter syndrome. And I just wasn't comfortable. It just wasn't the stuff that the people I wanted to help or like, they were good people, but just wasn't me. So I floated this idea of starting this business called the Wealth Cartel, which was the original name I was going to go with. And everyone sort of was like, what's that about? And I said, I want to look after a niche group of people called legitimate gangsters. And that's, people who might have grown up like me and come from that life, but have legitimate businesses. They like the flashy stuff. They like the watches. They like the cars. They like the houses, but they're legitimate. But they look like they might not be. And so that's what I want to help. That's my thing. And everyone laughed at me and said, there's not a chance that'll work. So I didn't do it. And I sort of stuck at it. And then I just started, hanging around. We were sitting at barbecues and I started to get really good at what I was doing. And we're sitting at barbecues and people are picking my brain and I'm like, man, I'm better than all these people these people are listening to. And these are my people. These are my legitimate gangster people. And I was like, all right, my wife and I decided to get married. And just out of nowhere, I was like, I'm going to get married. I'm going to quit. I'm going to start my own business. And so I did. I launched Three Kings Wealth Management under the proviso of helping. It started out as legitimate gangsters as a thing, but I sort of niched down into, ambitious young hustlers, also known as Westie hustlers. Ambitious young hustlers who want to live today to the fullest while still planning and getting ahead tomorrow. And that's got me to where I am today.
Mate, I love it. And I think I get a real kick out of marketing. I think it's a super interesting space, like advice, the one-on-one part of advice and positioning things in different ways. And then it lands in different ways with people and connects with different people. And some people it does and some people it doesn't. And I think marketing is the same. It's one of those things that you put a message out there, but the message is going out to the masses. And when I look at your stuff come out, I think you're definitely speaking to someone. Can you tell us a bit about, I suppose, how you've tackled the content and maybe some of the sort of the learnings around that?
Yeah, mate, that's a really good point, because actually something I do heavily with my clients now, like one of the big things we do is helping them, you know as well, you can only put more money in your pocket from spending less or earning more, right? They're the only two ways. Whatever the strategy is encompasses one of those two ways. And one of the, you can only cut a budget so far before we start being a bit miserable. So one of the big things we do is how to earn extra income. That's, we talk about passive income and stuff like that, but that takes time, So how can we generate income? And side hustles and businesses are a great way to do that. And I've pretty much just taken the approach that I took, which is exactly what you just said, which, early on, and I'll give a shout out to him, Jackson Milan, he was my business coach at the start, helped us kind of launch at the start and get this messaging across and open my eyes to, if you speak to everyone, you speak to no one, right? And I used to think a niche was an age group, you know what I mean? Like an age group. That's how I'm looking after 35 to 45-year-olds, like that's my niche. Oh man, that's not my niche. And what I started learning was niching is all about, it's not about the industry. Like you can make a niche out of anything. You can be just doctors at this age or whatever, or at the location people live. But where I found my niche was the values, right? I had to speak to people's values, and those values might be the same for a doctor as they are for someone cutting hair, as a barber out in the West, but it was the values I was speaking to. And those values were people who were basically willing to do whatever was required to get to where they want to be, and, happy to live today while still planning for tomorrow, but don't want to just eat noodles and rice hoping that one day I'll be rich. It's like, no, let's get a plan to show that tomorrow's going to be okay, but whatever's left, let's enjoy that now, because tomorrow's not promised. And doing the marketing, like I really just started breaking that down. I started breaking down, okay, well, what are the pains and gains? If I was working for free, who are the people I'd love to still do this for, and sort of go from there. And I looked at my journey as, okay, well, if I want to look after these now, in 5 years' time, a lot of people get in the industry and I want to work with superstars and rock stars and millionaires, but you can't do that straight away, so I've got to work a path. My answer to that was, no, I want to work with the same people just further along their journey in 5 years' time. And I sort of started building it out like that and building out, okay, what is my avatar? My niche avatar is a guy named Tyson and his missus named Emily, right? Like that's my niche avatar. And what is Tyson and Emily? Who do they follow on Instagram? What do they do in their spare time? How does this look? And just broke it all down from there, from demographic to values to age group, what their pains and gains are, what their behaviors are. If I was walking past them in the street, what behaviors could I see that would tell me that, they've got the same pains as what I can fix? What's their problem? What's the solution that I can show? And, I say it all the time, at the end of the day, like people get too caught up in business about making money and selling, just selling for the sake of selling, when business is pretty easy. Like you find a problem that people have that you can solve. You figure out how to solve it. You tell those people that have that problem that you can solve it, and then you solve it for them, and then they tell everyone else, and that's business. And that was the niche. That's how I built my niche off the back of that, added the values in, and had a very, very clear picture of exactly who I want to work with.
And what's been the impact of that marketing and putting that message out to market?
So it's funny. It's real funny. Like I got real caught up at like everyone in this. I hate social media. I always have. I hate it, And one of my best mates is my idol because he runs it's like a $500 million a year company revenue wise, and he's not on. You can't find him. You can't Google his name, right? Like it's wild. You're like, man, like that'd be mad. But unfortunately, like I don't think I'd get to where I was without it. So what I got caught up in at the start was chasing those likes and chasing that reach and chasing those followers. And I really associated that with the context of success and money. And I was terrible. Like I was spending so much time on it, chasing the algorithm, where the algorithm basically says that, more people like you, the more they'll see your stuff and the more you'll get out there. But unfortunately, and no offense or the offense, whatever anyone wants to take to this, but a lot of the people out on social media are morons. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of morons out there, and most of them are consuming a lot. And when I started pushing my message to get likes, it was just getting liked by more of those people that would see it more, and the message wasn't getting cut through, and my message was getting diluted. So I went back and I finally had to, sit down with myself and said, you know what, let's just push our message, stop listening. A lot of the people were saying to me, oh, I don't resonate with that message, or you shouldn't swear, or you shouldn't talk about, your weekend, activities or drugs or this or anything on your page. And I was like, yeah, but I don't want you to be. I used to listen to them, but then I started going, you're not my ideal client. So that's actually good. The fact that you're telling me you don't like that is actually really good. A no in marketing is as good as a yes. You know what I mean? Like getting no's is just as important to understand where you're directing. But then the people that were my best clients were like, man, I really resonated with that message. And that was really funny. Like, no bullshit, you're up front. And I said, this is working, So I just kept teetering down that stage and kept pushing the message that wasn't getting, we're talking 1,000 views on Instagram and like 20 likes, and I was like, oh, this sucks. But I'd get two messages off it. I get 2 bookings, and fast forward today, we still only get like 1,000 to 5,000 views on our Instagram story, our Instagram, what do you call them, reels and stuff. Same as YouTube. I get smashed on YouTube Shorts, but like I get a new book, 1 to 2 new bookings every single day in my calendar, and that's really what matters, because that's the impact. I can put my message out as much as I want, but it's like, if no one's booking in, I'm not changing people's lives. How much impact or cut through am I really having? It's just noise if it's not doing anything,
That's right. Yeah. And that's why I think like big lists or big followings, if they're not the right people or they're not taking action, are not helpful. And I think that there's, like, I've been getting into TikTok for the last year, and super interesting. And you see, there's a bunch of people on TikTok, and they have these pages that they're optimized for views and for maybe even for engagement and like getting these viral videos, but like they're not going to drive people to action. And I think if the intention of your putting message to market is to attract people that want to work with you, which mine 100% is, then that's got to be the measure of success. And it's funny that for us, we've spent a lot of time going, okay, well, what works and what doesn't, and also who are the right people. And we spend a lot of time in our analytics going, well, okay, we're getting, a whole bunch of leads from this particular source, and that sounds great, but then how many of them are becoming clients and have gone through a few different times where we've actually just stopped going down a path which looked like it was doing a lot of stuff at the top of the funnel, but it wasn't doing anything at the bottom of the funnel. At the end of the day, it's like you can only do so much. So you've got to do the things that are going to have the outcome, the biggest impact on the outcomes that you actually want. And I think it is really easy to get caught.
It's funny you say that, Ben, because I like a big lesson on that. Like, well, I'll tell you a secret, right? I don't tell anyone this, but I'll tell you a secret. So I've got a software on my analytics channel, and you're actually one of the channels that I'm comparable against. Like, I follow your channel to see what your growth and your view rates are like, because your business is a business that I feel pushes a message that's real, not just. And I'll say this, people get hurt by this. There's a lot of people out there. It's very easy these days to make money, making noise and not making difference, right? Just getting eyes on you. And I feel there's a lot of people in our industry that have sold out to that, where, oh, I don't need to give advice anymore because I can get paid just pretending I am, or making noise. And that's not me. That's okay. For this, something you do, that's fine. Do that all you want. But I want real cut through. It's like I say, what's the point of having the cure to cancer if you sell it to people with heart attacks? You know what I mean? It's not going to solve shit. So and so I have analytics on you and 2 other businesses that I rate, that tells me, okay, like if we're moving in similar directions, that's good for me, for the industry. And I've got analytics on companies or businesses and their pages that I don't rate. And you should see the numbers. The numbers are actually quite phenomenal. Like lots of engagement, minimal growth, like the cut through is crazy. But the reason I went that way, and I'm actually really interested to see who these clients' advisors are these days, because I reckon they'd be you. I reckon you'd probably look after them. But they're clients of mine who I'd had since day one. They were some really good friends of mine, really good. I really liked them. And when I started Three Kings, and when I started going down that path, they actually terminated it was my first client I'd ever lost. Right, I'm very big on not losing clients. And our first client, and they were really good friends of mine. Like I'd seen both their kids grow up, and I was quite heartbroken, and I was like, oh man, like, can we have like, that's fine. You got to do what's right for you. I'll fix it all up. And can we talk about why? And the one reason was, I said, man, we'll be honest with you. Like, yeah, we love you, but it seems like you're doing a lot. Like on your Instagram, it looks like you're doing a lot, and we're not feeling that. We don't feel like a lot's happening. And I was like, right. And I said, you know what? I think I even refunded them. I was like, you know what? I'm so sorry. Like, that's such a big wake up call. Here, let me help you transition. I can recommend a few other advisors. And you were one of the advisors I recommended. So I recommend a few other advisors. So you go, please, you need advice. You got a real good position. Go get that. And I'm going to work on this. And that day changed my entire business trajectory. I stopped messing around with the noise, and I was like, I got to do what matters here. I got to actually make proper change. I got to focus on what's mattering. But it is hard when you're a startup business to get out of that noise, because you do need that momentum, you know?
Yeah. And you, like me, like when I started my business, I was the only advisor. And I think I definitely had that conversation with clients as well, that was always super interested in marketing, had some growth plans for the business. And then, so you're doing all this stuff, and you sort of reach that tipping point. And I were just chatting a bit offline, and you're sort of getting to that level as well, that it is a tricky time where you go, well, like, I need to keep working on growing the business and growing the team, and then doing these things to keep that going. But at the same time, you've got, you've got to make sure that you're managing the client's perception as much as anything. And it can be that difficult when you're trying to be everywhere all of the time. I don't know that I ever cracked the code on that, although it has become easier.
And that word perception's crazy, man. Like I actually had to get a check, like a bit of a chin check, because when I was at other businesses, including Announcer, one of the big things was I felt there's so much perception. Everyone talking, I was like, man, stop talking about perception. Let's talk about real. Like I don't want people to perceive. I want it to be real. And that's what I thought all that mattered, was the genuine real. But I realized it's kind of like in training, adherence to a program is the most important thing. You can put out the best program, but if the client doesn't adhere to it because they don't understand or like it, it's not going to mean anything. And I didn't get that at the start. I was like, no, I'm like, these clients, what they didn't know, like, we had just had a meeting, and off the back of that meeting, I'd done advice, and a lot of my clients aren't very good at reading advice. And I must admit, I probably wasn't great at explaining it then. We had actually ended up reducing their risk and changing this investment portfolio, and we'd saved them at the start of COVID. It was something like 70%, right? Like, we'd done this, which, each their own on what happens, but we basically made them about 70% in like a small month period from strategic advice. But I hadn't explained it very well. Like, they just sort of went along with it because it was me, and they'd signed the advice and done that. But their perception was that we weren't doing much, even though in my head I was like, we've done so much. Like, I literally just saved just 75 grand in 3 months. I made just 75 grand, and that was big compared to the rest of their portfolio. And I was like, but then I realized it's important. Like, perception is important in this. You've got to, not only the perception that you have on the market, but the perception your clients have of what's really happening. And that was game changing. And those clients, like, to this day, if like, I'll take them to dinner for the rest of their lives, because to this day, I don't know where my business would be if that didn't happen.
Yeah, it's super interesting. And that psychology side of things, it really, and the business impact of that, it fascinates me, it challenges me, and it frustrates me at a lot of times as well. But it's a really important one. And I know for us, like, it's the perception, client's perception of the value of advice and what you're doing is crucial, right? It's crucial to their likelihood of success. And I think that that's something that, and we still have a lot of work. We just had a workshop with our team this morning, that it's like, we know for a client that the value comes, like, just the financial upside value comes in all of these different areas, and that it's like, in the tens of thousands of dollars, and sometimes even hundreds of thousands of dollars. But sometimes they're not achieving it, and especially they're not perceiving it, and particularly for younger clients that are seeking out financial advice, they're typically the ones that are the high achievers. They're seeking advice because they want to, kick a bunch of ass and get way ahead. And they're generally like, when you ask them how they're going or how they feel that they're going, they'll go, oh yeah, I'm feeling like a 7 out of 10. And then you're like, hold on a sec. Like, what you've done in the last 12 months is you bought that, that second investment property, and that's great. And you saved like $35,000 and your investment portfolio has grown by $80,000. And then you've done all these different things, and they're like, oh, fuck, yeah. Oh, that's right. But they don't yet own that $5 million dream home that they really, so they're feeling.
But isn't the juxtaposition of that when someone new comes in with an absolute dog shit financial scenario and they go, hey, yeah, I'm a 10. It's like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like, and you go, that's wild. Like the behavior, like, and so like I'm doing my master's at the moment and I want to go down my PhD route, and the thesis area that I'll go down is, I love behavioral finance, right? The impact people's mind have on their money. I think there's so much more to that than what people pay attention to. And that's something that we do. And it's what you were saying before about the financial benefit, right? Like we've actually just pivoted our marketing campaign recently to get away from how much we make people and that kind of stuff, because the same thing happened to us, man. We did a feedback across our clientele, and I was like, tell me, what do you value the most? And the number one thing people come back with was, bro, we just love that you're our hype man. Like, if we're feeling down and whatever, like, we can just give you a call. Because my clients, we do formally 2 meetings a year, 6 monthly. But I tell them, and this is why I've got so much staff behind me for One Advisor, is because I say my best clients catch up with me 10 times a year, right? Like, I want to speak to you every month, even if it's just 15 minutes. Let's get on the phone. Let's have a hype call, And I know it's not scalable. I tell advisors all the time, do not copy what I do. You won't be profitable. But I like, that's what we do. That's what I love. And they go, man, we just love the fact that I can send you an Instagram message if I'm feeling down or I'm unsure about which toilet paper roll to buy, you know what I mean? And you're there. And, if I'm not sure about what's going on, you'll hype us up. Or if I'm getting a bit too full of myself, you'll bring us back down, like that's the thing. And so we've completely pivoted out. And that's what our best clients say. They go, we know, you give us our reviews. We know the financial stuff's there. You've taught us that consistency is all that matters. It'll come, everything will come, and you've built the trust. Now, where we see the value is just being our hype man. So our whole marketing pivot now is really more about, do you have someone good in your corner to tell you, 1, when you need a bit of a boost, 2, to give you the knowledge on how to actually execute on that boost, and 3, to tell you when you're being an idiot. Because if you don't, that's us. Let's go. That's where we really add value.
Yeah, it's funny, but you have to train them into that, I think, because people
100%.
They don't know.
But that's where your social media comes. That's the one thing about Instagram that I love, that I used to hate, is I now use my social media to train people before they come on board that that's who I am and that's what we do and that's where the value is. And when they come on board, they're so much further along that journey now. It's crazy.
Yeah, totally. I love it when the people say the things that you say back to them. It's the things that they want. It's like, well, it sort of makes sense that they're saying that because they've followed along from the sidelines for however long. But it does make the whole advice process a lot easier.
I was just going to say, that's why when we're talking about the niche marketing, the part that I loved about that was that the more that when I was doing the before trying to grow, my conversion ratio was horrible. When I got more niche and more down into it, like my conversion ratio is almost 100% now from Instagram, where before it was like 15. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's the power of a consistent message, I think, and the right message to the right people.
Yeah, for sure.
But honestly, I could talk about marketing all day. I'm sure you probably could as well. But I'd like to hear, you've been at it for about a bit over 3 years now. What have been the biggest shifts in your business over that time?
So yeah, we've been at it actively for about 2.5 years. The year and a half before, so we've been in business for 4 years technically. The year before that was changing licensees, and I went through some personal stuff and we didn't really go. So the 2.5 years what I really approached it on. And the big shifts in that time, I guess, is the first and foremost would have to be the pivot everyone had to make around COVID. So in multiple ways, right? Like not just out of office working and that kind of stuff. But for us, like I was so reliant on, I guess, strategy in the way of always having to back up my stuff with numbers. And, I found myself after COVID, especially just recently with like Russia, Ukraine stuff, like I felt like I was constantly saying, oh, we're in a once in a lifetime thing. I was like, bro, I've said this 4 times in my career and I've only been in advice for 6 years, like I've had 4 once in a lifetime things. And I've got to find a different way to sort of present this. And that's where I started really diving more into the psychology and pivoting around, let's talk about you and how, what can we control, what can you control and how can we go down that path? And now, man, I think to be honest, like advice is a real secondary point. I said this to you offline. We have a real mix of coaching, like I know a lot of advisors hate financial coaching and influencers and that stuff. And I just think everyone having a crack, do what you're going to do. I can only influence what I influence. But I for our clients, we have a real nice mix. Like we do the advice once a year, maybe twice a year if they're a bit more complex. Every year they get their advice, but then we have a coaching membership. So our clients sign up for advice when they come on board. They pay up front like an investment and they get advice. And then they have a coaching membership. And the coaching membership is come in, educate. We've got programs, we've got things like that. And we just educate them and coach them, a bit of self-doing, a bit of us doing it, and has allowed us to really get on top of the ball with such. And I think the reason is in the last 2-3 years, the economy is changing every couple of months, right? Like we've gone from the lowest rates ever to no inflation. Then we've got COVID comes around, we've got markets going down, we've got peak property prices, and we've got low property prices, and they're back to peak. And then we've got the stock market taking a dip and coming back. And now we've got interest rates rising and potential property or potential recession coming down. And we've got, again, the Russia-Ukraine, we've got markets like constant change. And, I don't know, I wasn't around 10 years ago for this, but 10 years ago, you could get away with your annual reviews and that would do, and it's allowed me to get more involved with my clients and focus on what's really important and what they can control and talk to them more about, hey, you can only control how much you earn, spend less than what you're allowed to spend and put this much in your future account. If you do those 3 things and we stay consistent, everything else will happen. And then let's focus on goals off the back of that. So let's focus on living a good life and enjoying ourselves. And, we really pivoted away from the traditional financial advice model, which we still incorporate heavily. It's the main part of our business, but we've just added that coaching side and the more frequent touches and the less complexity, I guess. Like there's still complexity, but I feel like there's more complexity over the long horizon than the short term. And the short term stuff's where you can really generate the capacity to get that complexity. And we've just started focusing more on that short term changes rather than waiting for a client to get capacity over time, so then we can do complex stuff, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it's simpler, but it's harder. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Like it's you got advice could be more complex, but potentially easier. But the behavior change, the habits, like you said, the focus, keeping themselves hyped up, controlling all the things that you can control, and then keeping that consistent over a long period of time. That's the difficult thing and requires real change. So, but also, obviously with the rise of technology, that's where it's all going. So, that I think that's where our clients will maybe want us, but definitely where they need us. And in my view, that's the future for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Mate, what's on the horizon for you guys? What's the focus at the moment? What's coming up?
So we put a pretty audacious goal out this year. We've got our infrastructure and everything set up. I took it pretty easy last year. We only took on 28 clients last year, and we opened our books for 3 months, which got us to over the 100 and I think it's 112 or 116. I don't know, somewhere around there for clients. And, it was pretty good. It was pretty manageable. And so, got all the infrastructure, got my staff laid out, got all that happening. And then this year we're going to go pretty hard and try and get to 200 clients. And that'll then keep me to the point where I can then branch that infrastructure out and look at another advisor and look at scaling and essentially getting me to do less of the stuff like I said to you offline, I think I've logged into Xplan once. I might have lied to you. I haven't at all. I don't know. But, I just talk to clients and do basic strategy, and everyone else in my team does the other stuff. And I'm just, that's why I can speak to people, once every month kind of thing with that many clients. So we've worked out the 200 is the capacity where I can no longer provide that value above that. So we want to get to that or as close to that as possible and then start looking in the next phases. But, I've got other business in the works as well. And I think I said I'm about to close a deal on my 7th business this year. And, we're big on doing partnerships with clients, which I know people frown upon, but I don't care. They frown upon most of my business, the way I run my business. But we find a niche, and we find a lot of our clients have these skill sets that we could leverage, and either they don't have the money or they don't have the business acumen, and I can provide one of those two things, and we go in. And so this year we want to launch a few more businesses with clients, and just help clients launch their businesses. And I'd really like to establish myself in the accumulation area of, I guess you got investors and you got this, but like the hustle, I say I'm a Westie hustler and I look after young, ambitious hustlers. And the thing I pulled last year was I'd gotten Three Kings to a place, off scratch that I was pretty proud of, but I wanted to then have a crack. I don't own property. I've got my shares and that kind of stuff. My super does well, but I was just really putting everything into Three Kings, which is worthwhile. The valuation's great and it works, but I then was like, all right, this year is going to be about growing Three Kings rapidly and focusing on my own accumulation. So then I can basically expand that out to clientele and show you, this is how we do it. This is what I've done. This is what works. This is what doesn't. And let's start getting people to not just be in their 9 to 5, unless they want that. But my niche doesn't really. They want those nicer things, and really cementing myself as, if you want to take things to the next level for my that target age group and that kind of client, King is your man. King is the guy that'll successfully get you to open something up and have skin in the game, and it's just something a bit different to what most advisors do. Just offer a service that isn't really out there at the moment.
Well, I think I've found the topic for our next 2 podcasts: the how the VC business startup business accelerator one works, and also how bring another advisor into the mix works, because that's a whole another can of worms. But mate, some exciting content.
Excited. I'm pumped.
My last question for you is that if you could go back to your day one self and do one thing differently, what would it be?
How far day one? Like school day one or just advice day one?
Three Kings day one.
Yeah, I think the only thing, and I was unfortunate that it didn't pan out that way for too long, is just don't trust anyone. Oh, this is probably bad, I know, because Ensemble's such a good community. But for me, I surrounded myself with people that were in the industry older, and I really heavily leaned on them. Like, I heavily lent on them to say, how do I do this? And they pushed me down a direction that was their way. And I basically just kept getting told, what you do won't work, what you don't won't work. And I kind of let that get in. I didn't back myself at all, I didn't back myself at all. And that took about a year and a half and about $60,000 out of my kitty to learn that lesson. And so if I could go back, I would have because as soon as I started doing exactly what I thought I could do from the get-go, I started doing well, making money, being happier. If that's the one thing, if I could go back, would just be back yourself more. You trust that you do have the right people, mate. Don't go and lean on people that you think do just because they've been in there longer, anything like that. And just back yourself. And if you're committed enough and you're passionate about enough and you've got the skill set behind it, it should work.
Well, we're in the new age, so I think sometimes you've got to have that. It's not that, things were different when you've got someone that's got tons and tons of experience, but it could be experience in a different market and, that's less relevant if you're trying to do something that's completely new. But mate, it's great to watch. I'm super pumped to see what's coming up for you. And mate, I look forward to our next conversation.
Appreciate it, mate. Love it as always. And I look forward to the next one.
Thank you, Kingy. And team, we will catch you on the next one. Bye for now.